Nina Okafor couldn't breathe. The rain pounded against the windows like an angry mob demanding to be let in. Standing in her modest living room, she clutched the divorce papers as though they were a venomous snake poised to strike. The shock numbed her, and in that moment, she felt as if the entire world had caved in on her. Malik stood across from her with a suitcase at his side. His eyes were cold, devoid of the tenderness she once believed was genuine. "I'm sorry it has to be like this," he said, voice stiff and unfeeling. He reached for an umbrella by the door, but Nina stepped back before he could brush past her. "This is it," she managed to choke out. Her throat felt as dry as the Sahara. "After all these years, you just hand me papers and walk away?" Her voice trembled, anger and desperation swirling together. Malik gave a half-hearted shrug. "I've tried to make it work. But we want different things, Nina. You know I have ambitions that far surpass our limited lifestyle. I can't keep playing this supporting role." She swallowed hard. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared he might hear it. "Supporting role? That's what you think marriage is?" He nodded dismissively. "Don't get me wrong, I appreciate your support, your love, but it's not enough. I need a partner who can keep up." Lightning illuminated the window, revealing Malik's sharp features twisted into impatience. Nina's mind raced as she recalled all the time she had sacrificed her own dreams for his. The late-night dinners, the weekends spent promoting his career, the endless prayers for his success. And now, when she needed him most, he was handing her divorce papers and leaving. She blinked away tears and forced herself to stand taller. "Fine," she whispered. "If this is what you want, then just go." Her voice shook, but she refused to beg. Malik's gaze flickered momentarily, as if he had something more to say, but he instead turned the doorknob. "Goodbye, Nina." His tone was final, echoing the thunder outside. With that, he stepped into the storm. Nina stood paralyzed, heart aching like a fresh wound. Finally, she sank to the floor, papers clutched to her chest. The rain roared, each drop a hammer blow to her spirit. If he was done, then so was she, or so she thought. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. A week after the divorce papers arrived, Nina found herself scrolling listlessly through social media, desperately searching for a distraction. She had barely slept or eaten. Friends and family tried reaching out, but she ignored the calls. At that moment, everything felt pointless. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a message from her longtime friend, Gbemi. "Nina, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you need to see this." Attached was a screenshot of an Instagram post. Nina's heart hammered as she opened the image. The post was from Malik's account, a photo of him with his arms wrapped around a woman who looked no older than 22. She had a radiant, youthful face and was visibly pregnant. The caption read, "Starting a new chapter in my life with Zara, the woman who inspires me to reach for the stars." Nina's hand shook around her phone, tears scorching her eyes. She read and reread the caption, the words blurring into a painful smear. Malik had not only moved on, he was expecting a child with someone else. A younger, apparently more inspiring woman. Nina felt a surge of bitterness rise in her chest. She glanced around her empty apartment, still lined with the remnants of a life she once shared with Malik. Wedding photos on the mantel, a set of fancy wine glasses given as a wedding gift still untouched in the cupboard. The mocking memory of everything they had planned together made her stomach churn. She dialed Gbemi. Her friend picked up on the first ring, her voice thick with concern. "Nina, are you okay?" "I don't know," Nina croaked. "How could he do this to me? Was everything we had a lie?" "It's not your fault," Gbemi said softly. Malik must have been seeing her for a while. This didn't just happen overnight. Nina closed her eyes. She remembered the late nights he'd claim he was working, the extra hours supposedly spent hustling for the future. All those times he came home smelling of a perfume she didn't own. How had she been so blind? Hanging up the phone, Nina stared blankly at the wall. Even though she had the divorce papers, she hadn't fully accepted that her marriage was over. Now, seeing that pregnant woman in Malik's arms erased any lingering doubt. If he was building a new life with Zara, then Nina had to confront the truth. She was truly alone now. She threw her phone onto the couch, a bitter resolve setting in. He moved on. I have to figure out my own path, she whispered to no one but the echo in her empty living room. Little did she know, the most humiliating blow was yet to come. The next morning, Nina woke to a barrage of notifications. She was tagged in multiple posts, and her name was trending on a local gossip page. With shaky hands, she opened the posts to see videos of Malik and Zara laughing at a lounge in Lagos, celebrating their relationship openly. The gossip blogs had framed the story as power couple on the rise, Malik Okafor and his beautiful muse Zara. One by one, the comments rolled in. She's definitely an upgrade from that Nina. Malik seems happier now. Maybe Nina was dragging him down. Zara is young, fresh, and pregnant. Nina is old news. Nina's eyes welled with tears as she realized how public her divorce and humiliation had become. She saw images comparing her to Zara, people mocking Nina's outfits, her more traditional style. The internet was having a field day analyzing every detail of her failed marriage. She tossed her phone aside. The negativity burned through her like a hot poker. She thought about responding, defending her dignity, but the avalanche of hateful comments left her feeling powerless. Her mind spun with questions. How long had they been together? Was my entire marriage a sham? Who do I turn to now? Just then, there was a knock at her door. She jumped, heart pounding. Opening it, she found her next-door neighbor, Mrs. Damalola, holding a small dish of food. I heard about what happened, she said gently, her eyes full of compassion. I made you some rice and stew. It's not much, but it might help you keep your strength up. Nina felt a lump form in her throat. This small gesture of kindness in the midst of a storm of hate was almost too much to bear. She forced a weak smile and let Mrs. Damalola inside. Thank you, Nina whispered as she took the dish. She had to hold back tears at the warmth in the older woman's expression. You'll be all right, my dear, Mrs. Damalola said, placing a comforting hand on Nina's shoulder. Don't believe everything you read online. People love drama, but only you know your truth. Nina nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure what her truth even was anymore. All she knew was that the man she had loved had made her life a public spectacle. By the time her neighbor left, she resolved that she couldn't stay in this apartment much longer. The walls felt like they were closing in on her, a constant reminder of Malik's betrayal. As she poked at the food, still numb, her phone lit up with another message, this time from a friend from church. Have you heard what they're saying on the radio? About Malik and Zara. Another wave of anxiety crashed over Nina. She turned off her phone entirely. She could handle no more for the day. Within 2 weeks of the public humiliation, Nina had packed up most of her belongings and made an impulsive decision to leave town. She told no one except Gbemi, who was sworn to secrecy. The apartment where she had once lived with Malik held too many memories. Everywhere she turned, she saw reminders of what she had lost. Early on a Saturday morning, she loaded 2 suitcases into a taxi and asked the driver to take her to the bus station. Her plan was vague at best. She would travel to a quieter city, find a small place to rent, and rebuild her life from the ground up. The only anchor she had was the tightness in her chest, a mixture of grief and determination. During the 6-hour bus ride, Nina stared out the window, watching palm trees and small roadside shops blur by. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she replayed the last few months in her mind. The argument that had sparked the divorce, the mistress revealed, the social media frenzy. She felt a heaviness in her stomach, a strange sensation she hadn't fully registered yet. When the bus made a rest stop, she hurried to the bathroom, splashing water on her face. That's when she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. She looked paler than usual. Her eyes were sunken, and her normally radiant skin had lost its glow. She thought she might be coming down with a fever, but she suspected something else. A faint, nagging thought formed in her mind. Could I be pregnant? She remembered her last cycle, which she had missed amid the chaos. Anxiety gnawed at her, but she pushed the thought aside, telling herself it was just stress. She wasn't about to let any suspicion of pregnancy derail her escape. When the bus reached its final stop, Nina grabbed her suitcases and found a budget motel to spend the night. The next day, she rented a one-room apartment at the edge of the city, a cramped, musty space with peeling paint, but it was something she could afford with her limited savings. Sitting on the flimsy mattress, she scrolled through her phone, ignoring multiple missed calls and messages. She felt alone and hollow, but a whisper of determination flickered in her mind. This was a chance to start anew, free from the prying eyes of everyone who knew her as Malik's wife. She didn't realize then that she wasn't just leaving Malik behind. She was carrying two small lives within her, lives that would change everything. Months passed in Nina's new city. She had tried to push aside the possibility of pregnancy, but her growing belly betrayed her. No matter how she tried to hide it, the gentle curve became more pronounced. She told no one. She visited a local clinic under an assumed name to confirm what she already knew. She was carrying twins. The news both terrified and invigorated her. She was about to become a mother, twice over, but how was she supposed to provide for two children all alone? She had little savings left and no stable job. She did odd tasks around town, cleaning houses, doing laundry for busy professionals, and any odd job that paid cash on the spot. By her 7th month, her feet were swollen, and she could no longer deny that she needed help. Yet her pride wouldn't let her call her family, who had warned her about Malik's selfish nature from the start. So she trudged on, living in a constant state of fear and exhaustion. One hot afternoon, as she was walking to the local grocery, she felt a sudden wave of pain seize her. She doubled over, breathing heavily, sweat beading on her brow. She wasn't due for another few weeks, but her body had other plans. A passerby rushed to her aid, shouting for help. The next thing she knew, Nina was in an ambulance headed for the hospital. "Miss, can you hear me?" a nurse asked, placing a comforting hand on Nina's shoulder. Nina nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. She had never felt so vulnerable. Somewhere in the haze of pain, she thought of Malik. A surge of anger gave her strength. She refused to let herself wish he were there. She'd do this alone. Hours later, Nina gave birth to two tiny, perfect babies. A boy, Ao, and a girl, Amara. Their cries filled the sterile hospital room, and in that moment, despite the pain, Nina felt a flood of love unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Holding each twin in her arms, she was overwhelmed by the enormity of this new responsibility. But she promised herself, and them, that she would do whatever it took to give them a better life. The hospital staff asked questions about the father, but Nina provided no information. She left the hospital after a couple of days, carrying her newborns in her arms and a mountain of hospital bills on her back. With a trembling breath, she walked out into the night, homeless, broke, and alone, yet holding the greatest blessings of her life. Nina's first few weeks as a single mother of twins were brutal. She rented a cramped room in a run-down compound on the outskirts of the city. The space was barely large enough for a bed, a wooden cot for the babies, and a small table. Yet, it was all she could afford after covering part of the hospital bills. Her days began at dawn with the wails of Ao or Amara needing to be fed. Sometimes there was barely enough formula to go around, and Nina often sacrificed her own meals to make sure her twins ate. She earned meager cash ironing clothes for neighbors or washing dishes at a local canteen. Whatever money she scraped together went straight to rent, food, and baby supplies. Still, she pressed on, fueled by a fierce maternal love. At night, when the babies finally slept, she'd allow herself a moment to cry. Tears of exhaustion, fear, and sometimes gratitude. Even though life was hard, she had her children. That alone lit a spark of hope in the darkness of her circumstances. One day, while ironing a pile of shirts for a neighbor, her landlady, a stern-faced woman named Mama Gbemi, knocked on the door. "You haven't paid this month's rent," she stated bluntly, arms folded. Nina flushed with anxiety, hugging the twins close. "I'll have it soon," she promised, her voice shaking. "Please, just give me a bit more time." Mama Gbemi eyed the babies, her expression softening slightly. "I've heard that before, Nina. I won't chase you into the street with newborns. But understand, I run a business. I can't carry you forever." Nina nodded vigorously. "I understand. I promise I'll find a way." As the door closed, Nina sank onto the mattress. She glanced at her tiny sleeping twins and bit her lip. "I'll do anything to keep a roof over our heads," she whispered. The unsteady foundation of her life weighed heavily, but she was determined not to fail her children. Weeks turned into months, and Nina's desperation for steady income grew. One muggy afternoon, while standing in a long queue at a local cooperative bank, she overheard a conversation between two women in front of her. "Mrs. Lawal is back in town," one whispered excitedly. "She's looking to invest in small businesses. That woman is a real lifesaver." Nina perked up, curiosity piqued. She leaned in slightly, pretending to be busy soothing Ao, who fussed in her arms. She caught fragments, microloans, mentor, very generous. By the time it was her turn at the teller, an idea had started to form in her mind. She had no business, just an idea for homemade skincare products she'd dabbled with in the past, using natural ingredients to keep her own skin healthy despite stress. Could that be turned into something real? After finishing at the bank, Nina discreetly followed the two women outside. Summoning her courage, she introduced herself. "I'm sorry, I couldn't help overhearing. Did you say Mrs. Lawal helps people start businesses?" One of the women, a plump, kind-faced lady, smiled. "Yes, she does. She's been known to sponsor hard-working women who have big dreams but no capital. Are you looking to start something?" Nina hesitated, glancing at Ao and Amara, who were both fussing in the old baby carrier. She hadn't pitched her idea to anyone, and she felt a jolt of fear at the prospect of being laughed at. Nonetheless, she took a breath. I make my own skincare products. Natural soaps, shea butter lotions, simple but effective. I've sold a few to neighbors, and they like them." The woman exchanged a knowing look with her friend. "That sounds promising. Go to this address tomorrow around noon. Mrs. Lawal holds informal meetings there. She might just be interested." They handed Nina a small card with an address scrawled on it. Heart-thumping with hope, Nina thanked them profusely. The next day, she arranged for a teenage neighbor to babysit while she made the trek across town. The building was modest, a single-story structure with a weathered sign that read Lawal's Community Center. Inside, a few women were seated in plastic chairs, waiting their turn to speak with the famously generous Mrs. Lawal. When Nina's turn came, she saw a regal older woman in Ankara attire, her face warm and inviting. Mrs. Lawal listened intently as Nina explained her situation. Single mother, twins, minimal funds, and her dream to expand her homemade skincare line. "Child, you have passion. I can see it in your eyes," Mrs. Lawal said, nodding. "I'll give you a small loan. But more importantly, I'll give you guidance. Can you meet me here weekly so I can see your progress?" Nina's eyes filled with grateful tears. She nodded so quickly that a tear escaped down her cheek. "Thank you, Ma. I won't let you down." And with that, Nina had a lifeline, a chance to build something that could change her life, and the lives of her babies, forever. With a modest loan from Mrs. Lawal, Nina bought raw ingredients: shea butter, coconut oil, essential oils, and simple packaging. She worked late into the night in her small room, mixing and testing her products. The gentle aroma of lavender and rose often filled the cramped space, soothing Ao and Amara to sleep in their cot. She labeled her products Nina Sky Naturals, a name she scrawled on plain white stickers, dreaming of the day she could afford professional labels. At the break of dawn, she would strap the twins into their stroller and head to the local market. She managed to rent a tiny stall on the outskirts, where foot traffic was minimal, but it was enough to get started. Those first few weeks were tough. The blistering sun beat down on her, and some days she sold only a couple of small tins of butter or soap bars. Discouraged but not defeated, she hung a simple banner over her stall, offering free samples to passers-by. The mothers, especially, were intrigued by the gentle ingredients for their baby's skin. One afternoon, a young woman approached, drawn by the lavender scent. "Is this good for sensitive skin?" she asked, eyeing the homemade soaps. Nina smiled warmly. "Yes, it's gentle and full of natural ingredients. I use it on my twins, and it works wonders for them." The woman tested a sample on her hand. Her eyes lit up. "This feels amazing. I'll take 3. She left with a small bag of soaps, promising to spread the word. By evening, Nina had made enough sales to cover the day's rent for the stall and buy some groceries. It was a small victory, but it sparked a glimmer of hope. She rushed home to put the twins to bed, then worked tirelessly to create more products. Over the next several weeks, word spread about the woman at the edge of the market who made gentle, affordable skincare. People with eczema or other skin issues found relief in her creations. Though the business was still modest, Nina felt a stirring in her heart. For the first time in a long while, she dared to envision a future where she could thrive without Malik's shadow looming over her. Each Sunday, she returned to Mrs. Lawal with sales records, grateful to see that her modest loan was already being put to good use. The older woman would smile, offering tips on how to brand the products better or approach local retailers. She even introduced Nina to some wholesale suppliers who gave discounts. Cradling Ao in one arm and stirring a batch of body butter with the other, Nina often whispered, "We're going to make it, my loves." And with every passing day, that dream felt less like a fantasy and more like an attainable destiny. As Nina's Sky Naturals slowly gained traction, Nina's routine morphed into a whirlwind. She would wake before dawn to feed and dress the twins, then set them up in a small play area in her room. She'd mix fresh batches of body butter, soap bars, and herbal face masks, packaging them meticulously. By 7 in the morning, she was off to the market stall with the twins in tow. Ao and Amara, now crawling and babbling, became tiny mascots of her stall. Customers would stop, charmed by their bright smiles, and Nina used these moments to showcase her products. She discovered that her humble but determined persona was its own kind of marketing. People liked supporting a hard-working mother who was earnest in her craft. In the evenings, after she tucked the twins into bed, she pored over small business advice articles she found online whenever she could afford data on her phone. She learned about the importance of branding, consistency, and creating a unique selling point. Her nights bled into mornings, fueled by a single flickering light bulb and an unyielding resolve to build a stable life. One particularly busy night, Nina heard a knock on her door. Startled, she stepped over stacks of neatly labeled soaps and lotions to open it. Standing there was her landlady, Mama Gbemi, looking serious. Nina's heart skipped a beat. "Is something wrong with the rent?" Mama Gbemi studied her for a moment, then glanced at the room full of products. "You're behind on this month's payment, but I see you've been working non-stop. Any chance you can pay at least half now?" Nina bit her lip. She had some money set aside from her recent sales, but it was allocated to raw materials. "I can give you half tomorrow," she offered, praying she could make enough sales at the stall in the morning. The landlady nodded. "All right. But don't forget. I'm being kind because of the children, but business is business." After the door closed, Nina let out a shaky sigh. She felt the pressure mounting. She was so close to stabilizing her business, yet setbacks like rent could topple her fragile progress. Steadying her resolve, she returned to work, stirring a big batch of hibiscus-infused body cream. If she could just push a bit harder, she believed, life might finally turn a corner. And so the cycle continued, late nights making products, early mornings tending to the twins, long days selling at the market. The weeks blended together in an exhausting dance of survival. Yet beneath it all, Nina nurtured a growing confidence that she was on the path to something significant. Late one afternoon, as Nina was closing up her market stall, she heard a familiar voice call her name. Whirling around, she spotted Gbemi, her longtime friend, weaving through the crowd with a broad smile on her face. "Nina! Oh my goodness, it's really you!" Gbemi exclaimed, throwing her arms around Nina in a tight hug. Nina felt tears prick her eyes. She and Gbemi had mostly lost touch after Nina disappeared from Lagos, but here she was, in the flesh, beaming like a ray of sunshine. "How did you find me?" Nina asked, still in disbelief. Gbemi shrugged, her grin unwavering. "I've been asking around for months. Finally, a friend told me about this amazing skincare stall they'd visited in another city. I had a hunch it could be you." She then laid eyes on Ao and Amara, who were napping in their stroller. "Are these your babies?" She knelt down to gently pinch their cheeks. "They look just like you, Nina. And Malik," she added hesitantly, realizing the complexity of the situation. Nina nodded, feeling a mix of pride and vulnerability. Yes. They're my world now. Gbemi sighed. Oh, Nina. I'm so sorry about how everything turned out. I tried calling you, but... I know. I just couldn't face anyone, Nina admitted. But I'm here now, trying to make ends meet and raise my babies. As Gbemi helped Nina pack up her stall, she listened to the condensed version of Nina's trials, from giving birth alone to starting her skincare line, all while struggling to keep a roof over her head. Gbemi's eyes welled with tears at the stark reality of her friend's plight. You have no idea how proud I am of you, Gbemi said, wiping her eyes. You turned heartbreak into a business. Actually, this is perfect timing. I might be able to help. Nina loaded her products into a small cart. Help how? I've been working with an entrepreneurial organization that offers grants and marketing support to small businesses, Gbemi explained, excitement dancing in her eyes. I bet they'd love what you're doing here. Nina felt a rush of hope surge through her veins. Really? That could change everything. Gbemi nodded emphatically. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, let's get you a better stall, and maybe even a small shop space. You shouldn't have to stand in the sun all day with 2 toddlers. Nina's throat tightened with gratitude. She knew that accepting help could feel like an admission of failure, but Gbemi's sincerity and their long-standing friendship made it easier. Thank you, Gbemi, she said, voice quivering. I really appreciate this. Gbemi patted her shoulder. We'll talk more tomorrow. For now, let's get you and these adorable twins home safely. As they walked away from the market, Nina felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, relief. Having a friend by her side made her burdens feel lighter, and for the first time, she allowed herself to envision a future that wasn't just about surviving, but thriving. Over the next few weeks, Gbemi worked her magic. She introduced Nina to a few key people from the entrepreneurial organization, who took an immediate liking to Nina's all-natural products. Impressed by her dedication and single-mother narrative, they offered her a small grant, which she used to redesign her packaging and move from a cramped market stall to a shared retail space in a newly renovated arcade. Gone were the days of plain white stickers. Nina worked with a local graphic designer to create a sleek logo depicting a blooming flower with the initials NS. Now each jar and soap bar carried a professional label, exuding quality and care. She renamed the brand Nina Sky Naturals in full, adding the tagline, Nature's Touch, Skin's Delight. The transformation was staggering. Customers who had once passed by her modest stall now stopped to admire the polished display. Shelves were lined with various skincare products, from mint-scented soaps to cocoa butter lotions. With every purchase, Nina offered a warm smile and genuine gratitude. Sales began to climb, and positive reviews started appearing on local business directories. Meanwhile, Ao and Amara, now toddling around, became little ambassadors for the brand. They were often seen in social media photos Nina posted, their bright faces glowing with the efficacy of her own products. People loved the authenticity. There was no slick marketing gimmick, just a hard-working mother using the very items she sold to care for her own children. One afternoon, as Nina checked her daily earnings, she was shocked to realize she had made more in a single day than she used to make in an entire week. "We're growing," she whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. She couldn't help but think back to the nights when she cried herself to sleep, wondering how she would feed her babies. Now, she was paying rent on time and even stashing away some savings. Word of her progress reached Mrs. Lawal, who beamed with pride. "I knew you had it in you," the older woman said during one of their weekly check-ins. "But this is only the beginning, Nina. Keep going." When Nina told Gbemi the news, her friend squealed with delight. "I'm so happy for you. This is exactly what you deserve after everything." They celebrated modestly with a small dinner, toasting with juice because Nina was too exhausted for anything stronger. That night, as she tucked her twins into bed, Nina felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Holding Ao and Amara close, she whispered, "Mommy's not going to let you down. We're only moving up from here." One fateful morning, Nina woke to find her phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, she picked it up and saw hundreds of notifications from Twitter. Confused, she tapped on one of the alerts and was redirected to a tweet from a popular Nigerian actress, Gbemi Alake, who had millions of followers. The actress had tweeted, "Been using these amazing natural products from a small business called Nina Sky Naturals. My skin has never felt softer. Hashtag support local hashtag skincare goals." Below the tweet was a picture of Gbemi holding a jar of Nina's cocoa butter lotion. The post had thousands of retweets and comments praising Nina's brand and asking where they could buy the products. "Oh my God," Nina breathed. Her hand flew to her chest as her heart pounded. This was monumental exposure, an endorsement from a major celebrity, all for free. She hurriedly opened her business page. Sales inquiries were pouring in. Her online store, set up just a month ago, was blowing up with orders. She felt a surge of panic. Could she handle such a sudden spike in demand? She had no warehouse, no large-scale production facility, just her small workshop. Bolting out of bed, she called Gbemi. "Gbemi, we just got a massive endorsement from Gbemi Alake. Twitter is going crazy. How do we handle this?" Gbemi was equally excited. "Don't worry. I'll come over, and we'll figure this out together. Call up some friends. See who can help with packaging. We need all hands on deck." Within hours, Nina's cramped workshop was bustling with activity. Women from the local community pitched in to help stir body butters, pour them into jars, and affix labels. The e-commerce site threatened to crash from the volume of orders, forcing Nina to put a temporary cap on sales. It was a whirlwind, but an exhilarating one. By nightfall, they had managed to fulfill the first wave of orders. Exhausted, Nina sat on the floor, leaning against a stack of neatly packed boxes. Gbemi collapsed beside her. They exchanged weary smiles, the air crackling with a sense of victory. "This is just the beginning," Gbemi said, handing Nina a bottle of water. Gbemi's tweet could open doors you never even knew existed. Nina nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I never thought I'd see a day like this after everything I've been through. I'm so grateful." The next day, the business's social media pages skyrocketed in followers. Online magazines picked up the story of the resilient mother whose products got a celebrity shout-out. Nina felt a wave of validation wash over her. All those nights spent crying in silence, wondering if she'd ever amount to anything beyond Malik's discarded wife, were behind her. She had carved out a new identity, one built on grit, determination, and love for her children. It felt like time had moved at lightning speed. Before Nina knew it, Ao and Amara were turning 2 years old. She decided to throw them a small party in the courtyard of her home, a new, slightly bigger apartment she had been able to afford after her business took off. Neighbors gathered around, marveling at the whimsical decorations. Colorful balloons, a homemade cake with cartoon characters, and a table brimming with snacks. Gbemi came bearing gifts, as did the ladies who had helped Nina fulfill the celebrity orders. Even Mrs. Lawal arrived, exclaiming with pride at how big the twins had grown. "Happy birthday, my darlings." Nina cooed, hugging both children at once. They giggled, wearing tiny party hats that kept slipping off their heads. As she looked at them, a lump rose in her throat. She recalled how she had once worried whether she'd even be able to keep a roof over their heads, much less celebrate a milestone like this. When it was time to cut the cake, Nina helped Ao and Amara place their little hands on the plastic knife. Everyone cheered, snapping photos. The twins squealed in delight, clapping their hands as the first slice was served. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Nina took a moment to reflect. 2 years ago, she was alone, abandoned, and fearful for her baby's future. Now, she stood surrounded by people who genuinely cared for her, running a thriving business, raising 2 bright, healthy children. The sense of gratitude was overwhelming. Later, she tucked Ao and Amara into bed, pausing to watch their peaceful slumber. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gbemi. "So proud of you, sis. The sky is not your limit, it's only your starting point." Nina smiled softly and replied, "Thank you for everything. Love you." As she closed her eyes that night, Nina felt a stirring in her heart. She was finally free to dream, and her children were the center of those dreams. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she could face them head-on. She had come too far, survived too much, to ever go back to who she was before. In the months following the twins' birthday party, Nina Sky Naturals expanded in ways Nina never thought possible. Word of mouth and the viral celebrity endorsement had catapulted her brand into a national conversation about natural and organic skincare. Soon, investors and venture capitalists came knocking, intrigued by her remarkable story. Nina was cautious but excited. She arranged meetings with potential investors at a local co-working space, carefully reviewing proposals with Gbemi by her side. Some offered large sums of money, but wanted to control her product line or shift manufacturing to cheaper, synthetic ingredients. Nina refused to compromise the integrity of her brand. Others made more balanced offers, allowing Nina to maintain creative control. Eventually, she struck a deal with a reputable investor who admired her ethical approach. With the infusion of capital, Nina hired a small team, a marketing specialist, a production assistant, and a customer service representative. She moved out of the shared arcade space into her own compact store with a mini production area in the back. By her third month in the new location, she got a call from Inspire Her, a women's lifestyle and business magazine. They wanted to feature her in an article about successful female entrepreneurs who had triumphed over adversity. The day of the photo shoot, Nina stood in front of her new storefront, wearing a tailored Ankara dress and holding Ao and Amara's hands. The camera flashed, capturing the essence of her journey in a single frame. The feature article titled, "From Heartbroken to Heroine: How Nina Okafor Built a Skincare Empire," garnered widespread praise. Readers were inspired by her resilience, her unwavering commitment to her children, and her devotion to quality products. Online, the story was shared thousands of times. Malik's name was notably absent from the piece. Nina had insisted it remain that way. This was her story, not a sequel to his. Yet, as fate would have it, Malik would soon learn of her success in the most jarring way possible. It was an ordinary evening for Malik Okafor. Now an up-and-coming businessman, he navigated the busy streets of Lagos in his sleek SUV. Zara sat in the passenger seat, visibly pregnant, her expression more annoyed than content. They were bickering about something trivial, a late payment on the house or the color of the baby's nursery. Malik sighed and turned onto a major highway that was lined with massive billboards. He saw a new advertisement going up. Workers were halfway done, but already the vibrant image was unmistakable. In large, bold letters, "Nina Sky Naturals." And right there, in living color, was a photo of Nina, radiant and confident, holding two toddlers in her arms. The text read, "Gentle on skin, kind to nature, a mother's touch in every jar." Malik's heart slammed against his ribs. His foot eased off the accelerator, causing Zara to frown. "What's wrong?" she snapped, following his gaze. When she saw the billboard, her lips curled into a scowl. "Is that Nina?" Speechless, Malik pulled to the side of the road. He stared at the billboard as if it were an apparition. Nina looked so different. No trace of the timid woman he once knew. She appeared poised, prosperous, and most shocking of all, she had 2 children with her. Twins. His mind spun. He had never heard of Nina having kids. When did this happen? Why hadn't he known? Zara shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her arms folded across her growing belly. She could see the shock in Malik's eyes, and something inside her stirred with jealousy and fear. "Let's go," she insisted, but he remained rooted, transfixed by the billboard. Malik swallowed hard. Memories flooded back of the day he served Nina with divorce papers, his justifications for leaving, and his arrogance in flaunting his new relationship. Yet here was Nina, apparently more successful than he'd ever imagined. The pang in his chest was a cocktail of envy, regret, and disbelief. Eventually, he restarted the car and drove off in brooding silence. Zara's questions went unanswered. His mind raced with possibilities. Was I the father of those twins? Did Nina hide her pregnancy from me on purpose? He scoffed at the idea of her life surpassing his. Impossible, he told himself, but the image of that billboard remained burned into his thoughts. Back at home, Zara paced the living room, unable to contain her growing frustration. She had seen the look in Malik's eyes when he saw Nina's billboard. Shock, yes, but also a flicker of admiration. That look haunted Zara. She was carrying Malik's child. Wasn't she the one who should hold his attention? Malik retreated to his study, leaving Zara seething. She pulled out her phone and hopped on social media, quickly searching for Nina Sky Naturals. The page popped up, showcasing an array of beautifully packaged products, testimonies from satisfied customers, and numerous pictures of Nina with her adorable twins. Zara's stomach twisted in knots. Those kids looked so much like Malik it was unnerving. The shape of their eyes, the arch of their eyebrows. Scrolling further, Zara found articles about Nina's rise to success, how she overcame adversity, and how her skincare line went viral thanks to a celebrity tweet. She stumbled on photos of Nina at events, shaking hands with investors and appearing on magazine covers. The more she read, the more her jealousy burned. She's more than just a pretty face now, Zara thought bitterly. She's a somebody. With a sinking realization, Zara recognized that Nina was no longer the meek housewife Malik had cast aside. She was accomplished, admired. Her heart pounded as she considered confronting Malik, demanding to know if those children were his. But she also feared the answer. A confrontation might break the fragile foundation of her own relationship with Malik, a relationship that had turned cold and distant in the past year. Instead, she tapped out a quick message to a friend who worked in corporate Lagos. "Hey girl, do you know anything about Nina Sky Naturals or Nina Okafor? Could you dig around for me?" Zara knew she was prying, but she couldn't resist. The seed of doubt and jealousy had taken root. She had to know more about Nina's life, how she had managed to surpass them, and whether Malik secretly still held a torch for his ex-wife. Days later, Malik received a formal invitation to a high-profile business summit in Lagos. He eyed the gold-embossed envelope with curiosity. Inside was a letter detailing that the event would feature industry leaders, including a keynote speaker who was a rising star in the entrepreneurial scene. The name at the bottom of the speaker list made Malik's heart thud. Nina Okafor, founder and CEO of Nina Sky Naturals. He tossed the invitation on his desk, a mix of excitement and dread swirling within him. For all his bravado, he couldn't deny that a part of him wanted to see Nina again, if only to confirm whether the twins on that billboard were indeed his. Another part of him felt an unspoken envy for her success. Zara noticed the invite and raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to that summit?" Malik shrugged, feigning indifference. "It's just a networking event. Might be useful for business." Zara picked up the envelope and scanned the details. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Nina's name. She tried to mask the hostility in her voice. "Maybe we should go together. Show everyone we're doing well, too." Malik considered her suggestion. A chance to flex with Zara at his side, his pregnant wife, could be a way to level the playing field. In truth, though, he doubted seeing Nina's success would be easy to stomach. Still, pride won out. He nodded. "Sure, let's go together. It'll be good for us to be seen at these events." Zara smirked, placing a hand on her belly. Perfect. What neither of them realized was that Nina's focus wasn't on them. She wasn't planning a showdown or even expecting to see Malik. The invitation for her to speak at the summit represented another step in her mission to inspire other women entrepreneurs. Little did she know, destiny had arranged for them to cross paths in the most public of ways. The Grand Business Summit was set in a luxurious hotel in the heart of Lagos, complete with red carpets and dazzling chandeliers. Malik dressed in a sleek suit, determined to project the image of a successful businessman. Zara donned a fitted maternity dress that accentuated her belly. She was determined to remind Nina, and everyone else, of her status as Malik's wife. In the car ride over, Malik fiddled nervously with his cufflinks. "Let's just enjoy the event, okay? Network a bit, see some old friends. No drama," he warned. Zara rolled her eyes. "I'm not the one likely to cause drama. But if Nina tries something..." Malik cut her off. "She won't. Trust me, Nina isn't like that." As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized they sounded almost defensive. Zara caught the slip and set her jaw, but chose not to respond. Meanwhile, Nina was in the hotel's backstage area, meticulously going over her speech. She wore a sophisticated but simple dress, her hair styled in a sleek bun. Ao and Amara, now nearly 3, were with Gbemi in a separate room, playing quietly. Nina was aware that a crowd of influential people awaited her talk on building a brand from scratch. Nervous? Gbemi teased, peeking in. You've done so many interviews, I thought you'd be used to it by now. Nina exhaled, smiling. A bit nervous, yes. But it's a good kind of nervous. It reminds me how far I've come. They're almost ready for you, a staff member called out. Nina stood and smoothed her dress. She reminded herself that she was there to inspire others, not to prove anything. She had no idea that Malik was in the crowd, plotting to show off his new life. I'm here for me, and for those who need hope, she thought. That's it. In the lavish hotel ballroom, attendees mingled among tall tables laden with hors d'oeuvres. Soft music played as people sipped champagne and exchanged business cards. Malik led Zara through the crowd, shaking hands with a few acquaintances. Despite his best efforts to appear calm, he couldn't stop scanning the room for Nina. Suddenly, cameras flashed near the entrance, drawing everyone's attention. Nina stepped in, poised and radiant, holding the hands of Ao and Amara, who wore matching little outfits. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as people recognized her from magazine covers and TV segments. She paused momentarily, offering a gentle smile for the photographers. Malik's heart felt like it jumped into his throat. He hadn't expected her to bring the twins. Even from a distance, the resemblance to him was undeniable. Those are my children, he thought, the realization sending a hot flush of guilt and shock through his body. Zara's nails dug into Malik's arm. She brought them here? She hissed, her voice tinged with contempt and, though she wouldn't admit it, intimidation. Nina, unaware of the tension she'd caused, guided Ao and Amara toward a side hallway where Gbemi stood waiting to take them to a designated kids' area. But the damage, in a sense, was already done. The room had gone silent, all eyes on Nina and her twins. Whispers fluttered through the crowd like restless butterflies. I didn't know she was a mother. They look so much like Malik. Wait, is he the father? While the gossip escalated, Nina gracefully handed the children over to Gbemi and then moved to greet event organizers. She had no time for rumors. She was focused on her keynote address. Yet, an unsettling chill ran down her spine, a vague sense that someone significant was watching her. She was right. Malik stood stiffly in the corner, Zara at his side, eyes locked on Nina's every move. Feelings of regret, admiration, and possessiveness warred within him. Zara, her own insecurities stoked, glared daggers at Nina, who seemed oblivious to the tension. Are you all right? Zara asked, voice tight. Malik forced a smile. Fine. Just surprised. In truth, his mind swirled with the revelation that Nina had kept the twins a secret. Or maybe he had been too self-absorbed to notice. Either way, he intended to confront her, tonight. After a brief introduction by the MC, Nina walked onto the stage, a soft spotlight illuminating her. Applause rose, and she surveyed the large ballroom filled with business leaders, media personnel, and aspiring entrepreneurs. Her gaze flitted across the tables and, for a moment, landed on Malik. Her heart stuttered, but she held her composure, refusing to let shock derail her message. She began her speech calmly, recounting her humble beginnings. How she left a toxic situation, struggled alone, gave birth to twins, and started mixing skincare products in a tiny room. Her voice resonated with both vulnerability and strength, capturing the audience's empathy. She emphasized the importance of perseverance, authenticity, and staying true to one's values in business. People hung on her every word, moved by her story. Some dabbed at tears when she recounted the nights she couldn't afford proper meals while ensuring her babies were fed. Others nodded in understanding when she spoke of the sleepless grind of juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, Malik's palms grew sweaty. Hearing Nina's journey in her own words filled him with a sense of shame. He was the man who had left her when she needed him most. Now he saw the consequences of his abandonment. Those twins are mine, he kept thinking, anger mixing with regret. Zara seethed in her seat, envy gnawing at her. She saw the admiration in everyone's eyes for Nina. This was not the simple woman she had thought she was replacing. This was a force, An entire empire in the making. When Nina concluded her speech, the entire room rose to its feet in thunderous applause. Some chanted her name, others whistled, and camera flashes lit the space like a glittering storm. Nina smiled, blinking back tears. She thanked them graciously and stepped off the stage. The applause continued, a crescendo of respect and awe. The hush that followed was almost reverent. No one wanted to be the first to speak or break the spell of inspiration. Yet in that moment of silence, Malik rose from his seat, about to move toward Nina. Zara grabbed his arm, but he shook her off. A determination burned in his eyes. He was done watching from afar. He wanted answers. Nina stepped into a side corridor to catch her breath and check on Ao and Amara. Gbemi was waiting there, holding their small hands as they sipped juice boxes. The children brightened upon seeing Nina. "Mummy!" Ao called out, waddling over to hug her leg. "Mummy CEO," he giggled, echoing a phrase he'd heard Gbemi use jokingly. Amara quickly followed, and Nina scooped them both into her arms. "That's right, babies," Gbemi teased. "Your mummy is a CEO now." Nina laughed softly, feeling a rush of love for her children. The tension from spotting Malik in the crowd coiled tight in her chest, but she refused to let it ruin this moment. Gbemi handed Nina a bottle of water. "You were incredible out there. Everybody's talking about your speech." Nina exhaled. "I'm just glad it's over. I could feel eyes on me." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I saw him, Gbemi. Malik was here." A flicker of concern crossed Gbemi's face. "I know. Don't worry, I've got your back." Just then, she saw Malik approaching from behind Nina. Gbemi leaned in, whispering quickly, "Speak of the devil. He's coming." Nina set Ao and Amara down, her throat tightening. She turned just as Malik walked up, his gaze fixed on the twins. For a brief second, it was as if nobody else existed. He stared at the children, his eyes glimmering with a tumult of emotions, regret, shock, yearning. Ao and Amara looked up curiously at the stranger before them. Nina's heart hammered. She wondered what Malik would say, how she would react. Everything felt surreal, like a slow-motion scene in a film. Finally, Malik spoke, voice strained. "Nina, those children, are they—" She squared her shoulders. "They're mine, Malik. That's all you need to know." He flinched, eyes shifting from Nina to the twins. "But they look like—" "They look like me," Nina said firmly, cutting him off. She wasn't about to hand him the satisfaction of an easy admission. He lost the right to their lives long ago, she thought bitterly. Amara clung to Nina's leg, shyly studying Malik. The brief silence was broken by Zara's voice as she caught up to them. "What's going on here?" she demanded, glaring first at Nina, then at the twins, as if they were personally offending her. Gbemi sensed the rising tension. She gently took Ao and Amara's hands. "Come, let's get some more juice," she said, guiding them away before things escalated in front of the children. Nina stood, chin held high, eyes locked on Malik and Zara. A swirl of emotions welled up inside her, anger, heartbreak, triumph. She reminded herself to breathe. She had come too far to be rattled now. As soon as Ao and Amara were out of earshot, Zara turned on Nina, eyes blazing. "You had his children and never said a word? What kind of woman does that?" Nina's jaw tightened. "The kind of woman who was left with nothing and had to survive on her own," she retorted, voice calm but edged with steel. Malik stepped in, attempting to placate Zara. "Calm down," he murmured. "Let's talk about this quietly." Zara shoved him away, her composure unraveling. "Don't tell me to calm down. You're the one who kept secrets, Malik. Did you know she was pregnant when you divorced her?" Malik's face paled. "I swear I didn't. He looked at Nina helplessly, as if waiting for her to confirm or deny. Nina folded her arms. "And even if I did tell you, would it have changed anything? You were so eager to move on with your new life, to chase your ambitions. You made your choice very clear." Zara's eyes welled with tears she fought to hold back. She turned to Malik, voice trembling. You said you left her because she was holding you back. Meanwhile, she's the one who's successful now, more successful than you. And she has your children. The weight of this truth pressed on Zara like a crushing burden. She dabbed furiously at her tears with a handkerchief, not wanting to appear weak. Malik tried to speak, but words failed him. He had never seen Zara like this, broken, vulnerable, resentful. In this moment, it became painfully clear that his betrayal had long-reaching effects. He had thought he was upgrading his life, yet Nina stood taller than ever, while he was left grappling with the wreckage of his own choices. Zara let out a choked sob. You used me to feel powerful. Now look where we are. She turned abruptly, pushing past Malik and nearly bumping Nina's shoulder as she fled down the corridor. Malik stared after her, torn between guilt for Zara and the desperate need to talk to Nina. But Nina had no interest in continuing this drama. She turned to go, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Malik reached out, catching her arm. Nina, please, give me a moment. She yanked herself free. You've had 3 years of moments, Malik. I don't owe you any more. His hand fell to his side, powerless. Nina walked away, head high, the echo of her footsteps reverberating against the gilded walls. After the summit ended, Nina tried to avoid any further run-ins with Malik, but fate had other plans. As she was collecting Ao and Amara from the makeshift kid zone, Malik approached quietly. Nina, he said softly. Just hear me out. She sighed, signaling Gbemi to take the twins ahead. What do you want, Malik? He hesitated, hands stuffed in his pockets. The once cocky man seemed reduced to a bundle of nervous energy. I'm sorry. Truly. I never imagined you'd go through all that alone. Nina felt an urge to laugh bitterly. Oh, you never imagined it? You served me divorce papers and practically shoved your new relationship in my face. Then I find out you were having a baby with her. What exactly did you imagine my life would be? Malik looked at the floor. I was wrong. Selfish. I thought you were holding me back. I didn't realize you were the one holding me up. Nina's eyes blazed. So now you realize. Too late, Malik. Her voice trembled. I went through pregnancy alone. I gave birth to twins alone. I built a business from the ground up alone. You don't get to waltz in and make amends with a few apologies. He nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. But, can we talk about the twins? Are they? Yes, they're yours, Nina snapped. I didn't do a paternity test, but if you look at them, there's no question. A wave of regret flickered in her eyes. She didn't like being cruel, but she also couldn't ignore the pain he caused. Malik seemed to deflate. Let me be part of their lives. I'll provide for them. I want to meet them, get to know them. Nina clenched her jaw. Part of her wanted to run, to shield her children from the chaos Malik could bring. Another part of her knew that Ao and Amara might someday ask about their father. She folded her arms, weighing the risk. I'm not sure, Malik. They're still so young. And you're about to have another child. Don't make promises you can't keep. He rushed forward, voice earnest. I won't break my word again. She shook her head, stepping back as if his presence was toxic. We'll see, she said, though her tone was more dismissive than hopeful. With that, she turned and left him standing in the hallway, alone with the echoes of her footsteps. In the days that followed, Malik made several attempts to contact Nina. He sent flowers, gifts for the twins, and lengthy text messages apologizing for his past mistakes. Nina ignored them all. Even Gbemi noticed the influx of parcels at the office, stacked by the receptionist's desk with Malik's name on them. One afternoon, Nina found Malik waiting at the end of her store counter. She froze, gripping a box of skincare jars as if it were a shield. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, eyes narrowing. He cleared his throat, casting an awkward glance around. A few customers looked on curiously. "I want to talk to you privately. Please, I promise I won't take much of your time." Nina hesitated, then gestured toward a small office space behind the store. Once inside, she closed the door. "Make it quick." Malik ran a hand through his hair. "I want to do right by you and the twins. Let me at least set up a trust fund for them. Pay for their education. Medical bills. Anything they need." Nina's jaw tightened. "You think your money can erase the pain you caused?" He sighed. "It's not about erasing anything. It's about taking responsibility for my children." She stared at him, heart pounding. Part of her was tempted. Her twins deserved the best, and Malik's financial support could open doors. But then she remembered the years of poverty, the nights she cried from hunger, the humiliation of living in a cramped room, all while he flaunted his new relationship. She shook her head. "No, Malik. We don't need your charity. If the twins decide one day they want a relationship with you, I won't stop them. But I'm not going to rely on you for anything. You lost that privilege when you walked away." Malik looked crestfallen. "Nina, be reasonable. This is for them. They have me. And they're doing just fine." Her voice was cold, final. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Next time, don't show up at my place of business unannounced. I have a reputation to maintain." He inhaled sharply, as if wounded by her words. But he knew he had no one to blame but himself. Nina left the room, her footsteps echoing like a judicial gavel striking the final verdict. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Malik in a storm of regret. Months passed, and Nina's life only soared higher. Nina Sky Naturals expanded into a chain of outlets in Lagos, Abuja, and even neighboring countries. Investors raved about her eye for product innovation and her unwavering commitment to natural ingredients. She became a sought-after speaker, empowering women at conferences and workshops. Ao and Amara, now nearly 4 years old, accompanied their mother on certain trips, delighting in the excitement of travel. They affectionately called her Mummy CEO, a phrase that became an endearing nickname within the company. One weekend, an official opening of a Nina Sky Naturals flagship store in Lagos drew a massive crowd. Media outlets, socialites, and influencers lined up for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Nina arrived in a sleek car, stepping out like royalty. Ao and Amara followed, each holding one of her hands. Cameras flashed, capturing their every move. In the midst of the bustle, Malik appeared on the sidelines, watching from a distance. He wore a subdued expression, clearly proud yet remorseful. He made no move to disrupt Nina's moment. Zara, no longer pregnant, stood beside him with a baby cradled in her arms. Tension crackled between them, but there was a resigned sadness in Zara's eyes. As Nina cut the ribbon and the store's doors opened, applause thundered. People chanted her name. She lifted Ao and Amara into her arms, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. She spotted Malik, meeting his eyes briefly. She offered a dignified nod, nothing more. He nodded back, silent acknowledgement passing between them. Turning away, Nina focused on her children and the well-wishers around her. Cameras rolled, capturing the triumphant image of a mother who had once been abandoned and scorned, now standing atop an empire she built with her own hands. That evening, after the festivities ended, Nina returned to her penthouse apartment with Gbemi, the twins giggling over the day's excitement. Nina sank into a plush sofa, exhaling a contented sigh. She had navigated betrayal, poverty, and heartbreak to reach this point. She had become a woman who not only survived but thrived, forging a destiny on her own terms. Ao climbed into her lap, wrapping tiny arms around her neck. "Mummy, we had fun today," he said, yawning. Amara nodded in agreement, leaning against Nina's shoulder. "We love you, Mummy." Nina kissed both their foreheads gently. "I love you too, my darlings. And we'll keep going higher." She might not wear a literal crown, but she was a queen in her own right, a throne built from resilience, love, and unshakable will. She hadn't just won over her circumstances, she reigned over them, holding her twins and her peace more fiercely than any regal scepter could convey.